Every year since 2008, we've spent the entire spring wondering who will win the latest season of Drag Race. We pick our favorites, we study their track records, and then we get on Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, and if this is 2012, Facebook, to proclaim the deserving winner of the season. In honor of season 16's razor-thin margin between the top three, I thought it might be fun to go through and relive each of the Drag Race finales throughout history. For many seasons, the winner of the season is clear from early on. Even some of the underdog winners were often set up to win going into the final. Whether it's their track record, the edit, or just the fan reception, the winner is usually visible to fans going into the finale. It's not often that we deviate from the predetermined outcome. In other seasons, though, you don't know who's going to win the crown. There are multiple viable contenders from a production and a fan perspective. For today's list, I'll run down each Drag Race season and classify just how close the race was between the top 3, 4, or 5, and try to peg the frontrunner going into the finale. Let's dive into the list. The 16th closest finale, aka the least close finale, was Season 8. The top 3 consisted of Naomi Smalls, Kim Chi, and Bob the Drag Queen. If you were paying attention at the time, you'll remember that Kim Chi was actually the one who won the Drag Race fan poll at the end of the season, and was the favorite among fans. But as you'll soon see across other seasons, that doesn't always mean everything. It became clear early on this season that Bob was going to be the winner of the season. Right off the bat, she had her catchphrase with "purse first" and dominated all of the comedy challenges that season, even against other strong comedy queens. She came out ahead in both of her so-called feuds with both Derek Barry and Thorgy Thor. She nailed nearly every challenge and went on to win the most challenges the entire season. And it was clear that the judges adored her, so much so that they were willing to overlook some of her less than stellar looks throughout the season. Going into the finale, we got some great performances from Kim Chi and Naomi Smalls, but at the end of the day, it was pretty clear that Bob was the one who was going to take it. The 15th closest finale was Season 13, which consisted of Rosé, Candy Muse, Gottmik, and Simone. Despite falling into the bottom 2 twice on her season, Simone had RuPaul smitten from the moment she walked in the workroom. Her distinct style of comedy, her fashion sense, and just the way that she carried herself reminded us all that she was just like RuPaul, which quickly put Simone at the top of the list going into the finale. Honestly, from the first episode, she was at the top of the list. She, however, did not have the best track record. Rosé was the queen with the best track record, and going into the finale, Gottmik actually had the most fan support. Even from the first episode, which she rightfully won, Simone was the odds-on favorite to win the season. The only one who even stood a chance to take the crown from her was Gottmik. However, she was kinda notorious for her less than stellar lip syncs. She had been saved from the bottom in the Discomentary challenge, where she was clearly the worst, and she had a, let's just say, not great showing during the lip sync smackdown at the start of the season. When Simone was paired against Gottmik in the first round of the lip sync for the crown, it was all but over, and when Simone beat Candy at the very end, she established herself as the clear winner of the season in one of the most lopsided seasons in Drag Race. The 14th closest finale was Season 4 between Fifi O'Hara, who now goes by Jeremy Carey, Chad Michaels, and that other drag queen. Fifi was the villain of the season, so there was a very low chance she would walk away the winner. Ru clearly loved Chad, simply because she was a polished queen who had a point of view and nailed it the entire season. Chad was the one that I would have crowned when I was watching the season. However, the last remaining queen was the fan favorite. At the time, she was the biggest fan favorite in the show's history. And after Perez Hilton leaked that Raja won Season 3 before it aired, the show changed just how it crowned queens. For Season 4, they crowned each of the top 3 when they recorded the finale. Only when the show aired did the queens find out who truly won the season, and at the same time, the fans learned the outcome. This practice allows the producers to let the fans' voices be heard going into the finale, something that they still do today. After seeing the fan reception to this season, the winner was pretty clear. with the eventual winner winning the fan poll by a large margin, there was a 0% chance that she was not going to win the season. She even went on to win the All-Stars 1 fan poll by a large margin, and likely would have won that season too if she hadn't been the one that won the season right before. Season 4 was one of the least close finales in Drag Race history. The 13th closest finale was Season 2, where Tyra Sanchez, Raven, and Jujubee competed for the crown. The top two were destined to be Raven and Tyra Sanchez simply because Juju didn't have a win that season. Well, unless you want to count the final challenge where, in my opinion, she was the clear winner.
What about me? What about Jujubee?
Once Juju was cut at the top three, the top two were Tyra Sanchez, the one that Ru loved from the very start, and Raven, the one that Ru came to love as the show progressed. At the time, the fans were firmly behind Raven, simply because she wasn't seen as villainous as Tyra was. And despite that being objectively false, Raven was clearly still a villain, the fans were very much behind her. However, Ru made his love for Tyra clear from the very start, and I think she was the obvious winner from the moment she walked out on stage the first episode. Look at Ru's reaction. He saw himself right then and there on that stage. And like I said before, in the early seasons, the winner was decided prior to airing the season. And I think even if they had seen that the fans were behind Raven, Tyra was still going to be the winner of the season. This is RuPaul's Drag Race, after all. The 12th closest finale was Season 15. Looking back, it seems pretty obvious that someone like Sasha Colby would be the odds-on favorite to win the season. Obviously, she's a legend. She even introduced herself as your favorite drag queen's favorite drag queen, which is pretty iconic. However, if you had watched at the time, there was another queen who was getting just as much attention online, and that was Anitra. She had the most watched Drag Race moment in history, and still does to this day with her talent show on YouTube, and won one of the greatest lip syncs of all time against Marsha. Sasha was still the favorite to win going into the finale, but there was an outside chance that Anitra could walk away as the winner of the season. Going into the finale, a top two of Anitra and Sasha was all but guaranteed. Sorry to Lux and Mistress, who were also there. Still, Sasha had the momentum going into the finale, and with her solo performance of her original song Goddess, Sasha was the established winner. And in that final lip sync, she took out Anitra to win Season 15. The last 6 finales were the ones where there was a pretty clear frontrunner going into the finale. The next few I'm going to run through are the ones where I think there were at least 2 potential options to crown. Maybe one may have been a favorite, but there was still a strong outside chance that the runner-up could have become the winner. So let's dive into this next part. The 11th closest finale was Season 5's finale between Jinx Monsoon, Alaska, and Roxy Andrews. This was the original underdog story of Drag Race, and one of the greatest seasons in history. With the alliance of Alaska Tox dominating the season, and Jinx as the only force left to take out that dominant trio, it was only fitting to have her win the season. At the time, Roxy did have quite a few fans, even if she was seen as the villain. And Alaska did have some carryover fans from the previous winner, and established herself as a force in her own right. Both of them did have a small outside chance that they could win the season. However, Jinx was the clear winner when you talk about storyline. It was only fitting to have her win the season, and everyone knew it at the time. Jinx has now gone on to become the winner of all winners, winning Season 7 of All Stars, All Winners. And Alaska and Roxy have become drag legends in themselves. It's a win-win here for all three, but Season 5 was clearly Jinx's time. Coming in the 10th place, the 10th closest finale was Season 14's. Season 14 had the largest finale crowd of all time, with 5 queens competing for the crown. We had Angeria, Bosco, Diabetti, Lady Camden, and Willow Pill. Going into the finale, it was pretty clear that the top 2 were going to be Lady Camden and Willow Pill. Angeria had started to falter towards the end of the season, Diabetti was the delusional villain of the season, and Bosco was saved by the chocolate bar twist. That left the silent strategist Willow Pill and the surprising standout Lady Camden. Willow Pill was seen as one of the top competitors from the start. She broke out with one of the most memorable talent show performances in history during the premiere and went on to win the ball, the first queen to win against 13 other queens. And even though Willow never won another challenge throughout the entire season, she was still going into the finale as the frontrunner. Lady Camden, however, had a different story. She was pretty middle of the road when the start of the season happened, not having much of an individual storyline. Queens like Georges, Bosco, and Angeria were playing the larger parts of the narrative throughout that early part of the season. And the first time Camden ranked in the top was during the Glamazon Prime Design Challenge, where she likely would have won had Georges not created an amazing and stylish garment out of napkins and cookie cutters. We're still talking about it today. This showed that the producers were prepared to push Camden aside to promote other queens that season. It wasn't until the next episode, the Daytona Wind episode, that Lady Camden started to have her breakout moments. She nailed the acting portion of that challenge, and her runway reveal showed the judges that she could not be overlooked anymore. She went on to win 2 more challenges and showed she was a force against Willow's quiet confidence. During the finale, Willow had the best solo performance of the night, while Camden did just okay. I personally think Diabetti had the second best solo performance, but it was already established by the producers that the top 2 were going to be Willow and Camden. In the final lip sync, Willow took down Camden to win the season that she was always destined to win. The 9th closest finale is Season 10's finale. Going into that finale, it was clear that the producers wanted to crown either the young fashion queen, who was surprisingly funny, Aquaria, or the polished professional, well-rounded queen, Asia O'Hara. Eureka was too villainous, and Cameron Michaels had to lip-sync 3 times in a row to get to the end. One of the other 2 had to be the winner. Aquaria was the fan favorite at the time, and Asia was in second. Then Butterfly Gate happened. Whoever told Asia it was a good idea to release live butterflies during her finale lip-sync isn't a true friend. Asia tried her best to make it work as she poured lifeless butterflies onto the stage, but the moment her reveal failed, Aquaria was going to be the winner. There's also an interesting story to this finale. If you follow Drag Race lore and history, you probably have already heard this before. But during Eureka and Aquaria's semifinal lip sync to Janet Jackson's If, Aquaria slipped, and by the end, the audience were chanting Eureka's name. This resulted in RuPaul creating the first ever tie lip sync in a finale, as he pushed Aquaria and Eureka into the final. After losing Asia to Cameron in the first round, they had to keep Aquaria in the competition, because they needed one of their 2 options to make it to the end. Aquaria rightfully won that final lip sync, so it wasn't as bad, but in the end, she just had to get there, and once she was in that final 2, or final 3 as it turned out to be, she was going to win. The 8th closest finale was Season 12. Season 12 is really probably the most interesting finale that we had on Drag Race. To start, it was aired during a pandemic, which forced the queens to prepare their lip syncs all at home and perform over Zoom, basically. We also had a disqualified contestant make it to the top 4, who was already eliminated going into the finale. This left Gigi Goode, who was seen as the frontrunner at the time, Jada Essence Hall, and Crystal Method. What we didn't really know to a full extent at the time was that another contestant was disqualified right before the finale. Gigi Goode, who was the clear frontrunner for the season, filmed her performance in a warehouse rather than filming it at home like Jada and Crystal had, which was the rule for the final lip syncs. This left us with 2 queens vying for the crown. We had Jada Essence Hall, the professional queen who was an amazing dancer and who was unexpectedly hilarious, and Crystal Method, the lovable oddball who, in my opinion, nailed her solo number in the finale to Nelly Furtado's I'm Like a Bird. When it came down to that final Destiny's Child Survivor lip sync, Jada was the clear winner and was destined to win. But going into that finale, Gigi, Crystal, or Jada could have won the crown. The 7th closest finale was the very first season of Drag Race, where Bibi Zahara Benet defeated Nina Flowers and Rebecca Glasscock to become the next drag superstar. While both fans and judges wrote off Rebecca before the finale aired, the competition between Bibi and Nina was one of the closest ones in history. Both had great track records and represented very different kinds of drag. Nina had the fan support, but Bibi was the one with the producer support. And can you guess who won out? At the end of the day, for the first season of RuPaul's Drag Race, it's only natural that Ru would put someone who represented the kind of drag he was accustomed to. And while Ru has had some moments with alternative drag, especially earlier on in her career, Bibi represented the kind of drag one would expect for the first season of the show, and certainly earned the crown. She was the type of queen that you would see on the Absolute ads, or in the LA Eyewear ads. Bibi was drag. The 6th closest finale was, fittingly, Season 6. Season 6 had one of the most clear frontrunners in history, Bianca Del Rio. She never placed low, ranked in the top all but 2 weeks the entire season, and was an all-around polished queen. What was unexpected, though, was that Adore Delano was so charismatic and likable. She was a bit unpolished during the season at the start, but she endeared herself to the producers and fans alike. Adore was even called the biggest fan favorite of all time when the show finished airing. The competition between the polished and perfect Bianca and the endearing, rough around the edges Adore was so close the producers even filmed double crowning between the two the night of the finale. The 3rd finalist, Courtney Act, aka the RuPaul of Australia, was unfortunately drawing dead by the time the finale aired. Looking back, Bianca seems like the obvious winner of the season, but at the time, there was a strong chance that Adore could snatch the crown. And that's why we've got Season 6 at number 6. The 5th closest finale was Season 3 between Manila Luzon, Raja, and Alexis Mateo. This was the only time in history, at least until Season 16, that all 3 queens went into the finale with 3 wins each. All 3 had also lip-synced for their life, and all 3 had a distinct style of drag. It had never been more clear to me that this should have been a top 3. The producers unfortunately cut Alexis right before the final, which always stings to me because she was the one that I was rooting for at the time. This left 2 queens with an identical track record going into the lip sync for the crown. Despite Manila having a little bit more charisma and skill in the comedy challenges, Raja's fashion sense was unlike anything that we had seen on the season before. After crowning 2 traditional queens, Ru was probably looking for somebody who represented a different type of drag, a different perspective, and Raja gave us just that. That's why one of the closest top 2s came down to Raja at the very end. An interesting note that we didn't know at the time was that when Mariah Paris Balenciaga was eliminated, she wrote in her mirror message, "Congratulations, Raja," something that was edited out for us at home. To the queens who were there, it was very clear that Raja was going to win the crown. But to us at home, Manila or Raja, or to me, Alexis, all could have won the crown. The 4th closest finale was Season 11. The reason I have Season 11 ranked so highly is that we had one of the closest Final 2s in Drag Race history. While I think it was pretty clear to anyone watching that Silky Nutmeg Ganache or Akira Chanel Davenport probably weren't going to win the season, the competition between Evie Oddly and Brooklyn Heights was closer than ever. Fans already had a preview of their lip sync battle for the crown, with the duo's legendary Sorry Not Sorry lip sync after a particularly poor Snatch Game showing. Fans were eager for another smackdown. This finale pitted the quirky and lovable Evie against the professional and dominant Brooklyn. This is one case where the final lip sync truly determined who was going to win the crown. And only when Evie turned around to show her double face reveal that her win was secured. This truly was one of the closest finales. Speaking of seasons where the final lip sync truly mattered, the third closest finale in Drag Race history was Season 9. The interesting thing about Season 9 was that it probably shouldn't have been close. The winner going into the finale was Shea Coulee. She dominated the season, winning 4 challenges while serving amazing looks all season. She only spent $500 to create her looks, but still had amazing ones across the board. She was beloved by fans and became one of the fan favorites. The only one at the time who I truly thought stood a chance was Trinity Taylor, aka Trinity the Tuck, who actually won the fan poll at the end of the season. The reason I have this season ranked so high on the list was because the lip sync for the crown truly changed the game. After a season of meh lip syncs, the lip sync for the crown injected some much needed excitement into this predictable season. And unlike what we saw in future lip syncs for the crown, like we saw on season 10, the winners of these lip syncs were truly dependent on who won that lip sync. As the rose petals rained down on Sasha Velour's bald head, the frontrunner of the season was knocked out of the race. When Peppermint outperformed Trinity, the producers' first and second choices were eliminated. At this point, Sasha was the likely favorite, but when she won that final lip sync against Peppermint, she was the true winner of the season in one of the closest and most shocking finales in Drag Race history. The second closest finale was Season 7, when Violet Chachki defeated Ginger Minj and Pearl. This was one of the few finales where I didn't really know who was going to win. Both Violet and Ginger performed extremely well on the show, and Pearl was actually the winner of the fan vote that year. If you were watching, you probably thought that Ginger or Violet were going to be the winner of the season, but Pearl had quite a few fans. Looking back, with the way that Ru and Pearl interacted, there probably was a very small chance that Pearl was going to win, but she still had quite a few fans. Since then, after we saw Violet crowned, we heard from many producers and judges that the show was aiming for a queen that was different than the previous couple of seasons. We saw Jinx Monsoon and Bianca Del Rio, 2 queens who are more focused on comedy, winning the season. They wanted somebody different. Contestants like Violet, Miss Fame, and Pearl were aimed at targeting the young fashion queen archetype to bring younger fans into the show. And a queen like that hadn't really won up to that point. Still, going into the finale, the race was tighter than ever between Violet, Ginger, and Pearl. Still to this day, we see people who say Ginger Minj should have won the season, and with her performance on All Stars since then, she has shown that she is an established queen who could have won any season that she was placed on. Violet has shown she is truly one of the greatest fashion model type queens that we have ever had and probably ever will have. Pearl is also around doing things when we love her for it. So that's why we've got Season 7 at number 2. That means the closest finale in Drag Race history, in my opinion, is this season, Season 16, between Sapphira Cristál, Nymphia Wind, and Plain Jane. You could call this recency bias, and I'm sure it probably is a little bit, but this is the first time in years that I have not known who was going to win the season going into the finale. Every season since at least Season 13, the winner was more or less obvious going into that finale. And this year, while Sapphira was probably the frontrunner going into the finale, I still think that the other 2 had a great chance, and fans thought so too. All 3 had great track records, each with at least 3 wins. Plain Jane was the villain of the season who drove the narrative from the moment she walked in the workroom. Sapphira was the consummate professional who auditioned for the show 11 times before being cast. Nymphia was the only queen who hadn't fallen into the bottom all season and truly came into her on the final episode of the season. All 3 had a narrative going into the finale, and all 3 stood a chance. It truly came down to the finale performances. We saw Plain Jane eliminated first after her solo number lacked the punch and the production quality to match the other two's performance. Then it came down to the final lip sync, where Nymphia utilized boba tea, balloons, and just an amazing performance to out lip sync Saphira for the crown. This was the first time since season 9 that there was a true surprise at the end of the season. And there we have it. That is my ranking of the top 16 closest Drag Race finales in history. What do you think? Do you think season 16 was the closest finale? Did I get any of the finales wrong? Let me know in the comments, and let me know who you think deserved to win any of these seasons. It's all subjective. It's all about opinions here on Wild Spear. So stay tuned for more episodes where you can hear my opinion and share yours here on Wild Spear. See you next time.